Had a terrible experience with an art teacher. Didn't pick up a paintbrush for, I think we're talking about 25 years.
That's what holds us back. You've just said, yes, I'm going to do it anyway, kind of thing.
I wanted to believe that I was an artist. I love the process so much. I love pushing paint around so much.
You're connecting with a part of yourself that has always been there.
It's the making of the art that has really changed how I feel about myself.
You are strong. You are confident, right? And this is the part of you that's catching up. And when it catches up, the art changes. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Art2Life podcast. Before we dive into our guest, I want to just share with you that we are in the middle of the Art2Life free workshop, The Art of Your Life. There's still time to join. We have a few more days. When this podcast comes out, you'll still have a few more days. You can go to artlifefree.com and you can watch the recordings. We're still learning some things. I'm still sharing some things. This coming Friday, March 8th, we'll be opening the doors on the Creative Visionary Program. And you can find out all about that by going to artlifefree.com and joining the free workshop. And so that we also have some links that you can look in the show notes and find out all about that. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about my next guest. Caroline Millar is an artist out of Scotland. She came through our Creative Visionary program 4 or 5 years ago, I believe. And one of the things that we do at Art2Life is we help people clarify what lights them up in their life, what gets them excited about their art, and start giving people some clarity. When this happens, all kinds of possibilities open up. And it often starts with, is this even possible for me? Can I even become an artist? Am I creative? Am I talented? This is something that we work with people on. But quickly getting past that, the process of becoming more yourself starts to open doors. It opens doors in your art. It opens doors in your life. And I can't think of a better example of the transformation that can occur when someone's willing to hold the possibility open for themselves. Caroline has had an extraordinary journey, and that's what this conversation's about today. Part of her dream was coming and becoming a coach at Art2Life, which she has done. She's an amazing coach, helping other people, but also in her life. And she's going to be sharing with us today all about that. It's inspiring, right? This is what's so powerful about being in community, seeing people clarifying what it is they want, that process, and then chasing that down. This is what we do at Art2Life, and I'm just really, really excited to share this interview with you today. So have a listen, and I can't wait to hear your responses, and I hope that you can join us right now in the last day or so of the Art of Your Life free workshop. Again, go to artlifefree.com and know that on Friday, this Friday, on the 8th, we'll be opening the doors for about a week on the Creative Visionary program. Caroline's life was transformed by this program. And when she's saying CVP, just so for those of you who are new here, that's what she's talking about. It's a 12-week program. You guys, let's go. Okay. Hey everyone, I'm so excited to be talking to Caroline Millar today. Caroline has been an artist who entered Art2Life a few years back and has just taken off. And she's become part of Art2Life. She's coaches in Art2Life, and there's so much that's happened, and it's such a great story, and it's so inspiring. We wanted to take some time to just dive into your world, into Caroline's world, and hear about what happened, what's happening now, and where you're going. So Caroline, thanks so much for just taking the time to share with us all your whole world.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Absolutely, always a pleasure to talk to you. So yeah, thank you.
So give us the quick, a little bit of your background because it relates to, how you entered art and it's influenced it. So give us a quick little overview, of how you kind of came into this real creative period of your life.
Well, I have the probably quite sort of not unusual story of somebody that was creatively blocked for a long time. So the usual kind of like very creative child, wanted to make things all the time, loved art at school. That was my big passion. Had a terrible experience with an art teacher when I went into a further education college at the age of 16 and didn't make a conscious thought to never paint again, but didn't pick up a paintbrush for, I think we're talking about 25 years. I did go to art school, but I went and studied architectural, it was interior architecture, and I managed to get in without portfolio as such. I kind of came in via a landscaping course. And prior to that, I was a florist. So, but I had many years where I was doing creative things, working with flowers. I made clothes. I liked knitting, but I didn't paint. There was no fine art going on at all. And then I had a sort of wilderness of about 10, 12 years, a very difficult time in my life emotionally, and all the kind of creative stuff with the flowers and the making of things disappeared as well. And I got to the stage of thinking, how could you be so, that was my thing. Creating was my thing. And then suddenly it wasn't my thing at all. And it was something I was very curious. How can that happen? How can you be so creative and then suddenly it just goes? The most creative thing I might have done was designing my websites. That would have been the most creative thing.
Do you have thoughts as to, I call it hibernation, that we don't, it's a stage we can drop into these stages. I've had it where I just kind of stop. Any thoughts as to why you kind of went into this mode for a while? And it's perfectly normal, but it always
Yeah,
mystifies.
I think I was so busy coping with a really difficult marriage.
Hmm.
Um, two children. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having two children, but two children, a really difficult marriage. Um, Running a business, there just was no space in my head for anything else. And I think I probably was suffering from a form of depression, but for me, it came out as irritability. And I was just really cranky for about 10 years. And it just, I always felt that the creative part of me, I was thinking she was about 8 years old, and I felt that she'd just gone like, okay, I'll just go and hide in a basement until this is over. There was one day when I went and got some fabric and I made this big collage and I got really excited about it. And then I put it away and I didn't do it again for years. So there'd be like little glimpses of it, little glimmers that the creativity was still there, but it didn't sort of like develop into anything significant. And then in 2018, I was in a really good relationship and I was actually getting remarried, and we planned this big wedding, this big party, and I got really into the whole creation of the invitations and the decorations. And that seemed to kind of release something in me. And I started, after we'd done that, I started crocheting because I just wanted to carry on creating things. I was making these like cushions. And I decided at the beginning of 2019 to go to some art classes. And I found a woman who taught this really kind of expressive way of working. Actually, backing up a bit, I had at one point gone to some life drawing classes, and I carried on with that teacher, but it was the paint what you see style of art, and it just did nothing for me at all. But 2019, I found this wonderful woman classes, and she was all about mark making and playing and being expressive and throwing paint around. And I went every Wednesday afternoon, and I used to count the days until I could go to the art class. On Monday, I'd be going, oh, 2 days to art class. I loved it and I repeated it. I took it a number of times and I ended up with a whole pile of sketches, but I didn't know how to make a painting. And I started sharing things on Instagram, which was a big deal for me because I'm actually quite shy, and, or I was. And because of the algorithm, then you pop up, free workshop, and I think, oh, there was something about the way you spoke and the way that you expressed things. And I realized that I had never been taught about value and design or I didn't even know the word value. I didn't know that that was a thing.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, my art teachers at school might have said, "Oh, make that a bit darker, make that a bit lighter," but the value was not talked about as a thing. Like
Yeah.
color was And I took the pre-workshop, and I would go back into the art class, the following week, and I could see from people's work, I kind of look and go, "Oh, I know why that painting's working and why that one's not." I could see the difference, and I felt like I'd got some sort of secret. And so I carried on doing these classes every so often. Didn't paint at home, just painted in the art class. This time it's 2020, and I obviously learned about CBP, and I thought I would absolutely love to do that. Because at this point, I was like, I want to paint. This is what I want to do. I just, this is, I could feel that this child within me that had been sort of suppressed for so long had suddenly come back, and she was very happy to be there. But I didn't think that I didn't think it was okay to spend what is, not an insignificant amount of money on something just for my own personal pleasure. And I thought about it. I thought, okay, well, I could do it next year. That's what I'll do. I'll do it next year. And I spoke to my husband, who is the most supportive person on the planet, and he said, "Run that by me again. So you want to spend how much money on an art course, and you think that this person can teach you what you want to learn, and you want to paint?" And I said, "Uh-huh." And I have my own money. It's not like I needed his permission. And he said, "Why would you do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know. Why would you wait another year? Why would you not just do that now?" And I was like, "You think that's okay?" And he said, "Of course it's okay. For God's sake, you have savings, go and spend it on yourself and do that." So I
Wow.
straight away joined up. I think it was like the day before it started. I was really close.
Giving to yourself, it is so hard for people to give to themselves, which is crazy. We just aren't able to give to ourselves. And when we do, there's so much benefit to all the people around us. I mean, think of what that did for your relationship, for your life. I mean, look what happened, but it is, if somebody could teach me how to convince people to give to themselves sooner rather than later. I mean, I think things would be so much better.
By the end of it, I had a set of paintings that I was really proud of and that meant something to me and that were an expression of how I was feeling at the time. I had learned about color and value, and I knew what value was. But more importantly, because we do at the beginning, we do these desire boards. And on my desire board, the main thing was it said, "I'm an artist and I friggin' rock."
Oh my God.
Because that was the one thing I really wanted. I wanted to believe that I was an artist and not just somebody that was on the periphery that just had been to a couple of art classes. I wanted to
Uh,
really feel that that was what I was.
that's
And
so great.
by the end of it, yeah.
Wow. I get it. I so relate to that desire. That's a huge step. Without that, you can't go forward.
And after CBP in 2020, I had the amazing kind of good fortune to be contacted by a gallery in London who asked to take my work. That was literally like a month after CBP ended. And a year after that, I put on a show in the centre of London in this amazing gallery and sold paintings and had my name in the window in big sticky
Wow.
letters as they do.
Before we go another thing, I want to say I want to ask you a question, because one thing that I know about you, Caroline, that is so inspiring, and it leads into, we'll talk about how you help our artists, but something that I saw that is unusual, and I think it's key to the rapidity, to the momentum that you gained and the speed at which you've done all this, is somehow, and you describe yourself as an introvert, and I know you are kind of like, you spend a lot of, you're very thoughtful and you have a very soft approach. You're not like storm into the room and say things, but for some reason you're able to, even if it's uncomfortable, kind of say yes to situations and things that you're not yet sure of, like, right? Like CVP, you said yes to that, to some other things, and I'm curious how you've been able to do that. Like how, because that's what holds us back. You've just said yes, I'm going to do it anyway, kind of thing. How are you able to do that? Like, I mean, because I think that's part of why you've done all this.
I think a lot is to do with my training and my experience I was a cognitive behavioral therapist, which is one of the best things that anybody can learn actually is the theory behind it, which really is that we don't have control of what happens to us, but we have control over the way that we respond to it. And therefore we have, options. And really I learned how to think really logically. But well, what's the worst that could happen? Well, the worst that could happen is this. Would I cope with that? Well, yeah, actually. It wouldn't be the end of the world if X, Y, or Z happened as a result of this, which then allows you to take risks because, and if I'm making a painting and I don't particularly like it, well, what would happen if I put a big red brushstroke over it? Well, I might still have a painting that I don't like, but I'm no further backwards or forwards. Or I might have created something that's really interesting. Okay, I'll take that risk, you know. So it's the same kind of thinking. I know that some people can get very caught up in comparing themselves with others. I don't tend to do that because I like to think of if somebody is kind of ahead of me, that's like a sign. Well, that's a possibility. Well, if they can do that, then maybe I could do that as well. Um, I like to think that I learned how to reframe things. It was something that you just learn how to do. And once you start reframing things, you almost can't stop and it gets really quite annoying for people. But I can find something positive in almost any situation. And even if there's nothing specifically positive, I can say, well, at least I've got the strength to cope with it. There's your positive thing. And so it kind of like it's that baby steps and thought, well, maybe I could do this, maybe I could do that, so I just keep saying yes to things. And then it's almost like your skill set kind of catches up.
If we talk about art, and this is the Art2Life approach, as becoming yourself, of course, it's going to be amazing. And I just love that, you were saying, what I heard you saying was, I'm this is me. I'm actually connecting back to who I was all along. We use the word artist, but it's just authenticity. This is who I was. Now I'm just being who I am more of the time. And I'm having a great time, by the way. And it feels really good. And it's like, makes sense to me. That's just so beautiful that whatever this thing artist is, that is the power of it. And as you've shown us.
So you're asking about my art. So my art is an expression of how I'm feeling. It's a way, I don't know, how do I describe my art? When I first started painting, it was very much about learning to work with the principles of, learning to work with value and design and use color. I was creating paintings that were very much about imperfection and there being beauty and strength in things that are imperfect and things that are authentic and show up just as they are. I love things that are aged and worn and have that beauty that comes from just being, like a kid's toy that's been loved to bits, and it's kind of faded, like a floppy teddy that's, been loved for 25 years. I love things like that, or old walls where there's a real history to them. I love Japanese Boro fabric, there's a really sad story about it because it's a sign of poverty, but the way that they mended it was by applying just patches without trying to make it look perfect. They would just stick on another patch, stitch around, carry on with their work, another one. And over time, these built up and they just have this beautiful, beautiful quality to them. And they are spectacularly imperfect. And I love that. And that makes me feel quite emotional when I see it. And it's that thing of like, when you strip everything back, we are all just imperfect, but that's how we should be. You go into nature and every leaf is different. So what's the perfect leaf? There isn't one, they're all themselves. So that's kind of the core of what my art is about. I'm very influenced by my surroundings. So when I first started painting, which was during lockdown, everything was very much on a grid, very structured. And although it looked like it had a kind of slightly haphazard look, every mark was thought about. And I would spend a lot of time. Does that have to be, can that be like half an inch over to the left? There wasn't a lot of freedom in the expression. Things now have changed. They're much looser. I moved, well, it's nearly 2 years ago, actually. I moved to an island away from the city. I moved to a place with a view over the sea and a much quieter, small community, much closer to nature. I can walk out my front door and be in the top of the hills in seconds. I love it here, and my work has changed because of that. It's definitely I'm definitely influenced by what's going on in my surroundings. So it's kind of what's going on in here and what's going on out there, and the two kind of come together. Somebody said to me once, a friend said to me, "Oh, you're the master of transformation," or something like that. And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, you just change your life. So you just suddenly go, okay, I'm going to go and do this career now." And, I haven't seen you for 6 months and suddenly like I'm living in a different house. I've got a different job, and I get really deep into things. It's not like I'm jumping. I mean, some things I was a florist for like 20 odd years. I mean, it wasn't a trivial thing, but there might be something else that went alongside it that I suddenly just dropped into and got very passionate about as well. But yeah, it's that I will happily transform into, and I read every single day, but I don't read novels. I read books about psychology and personal development because personal transformation has been such a massive thing for me. That's something that I put a huge amount of energy into, is trying to be a better version of myself, doing whatever I can do to show up in the world in a better way.
So Caroline, all the work you've done and your journey and just it's evidence. I mean, what we notice from the outside is this amazing art and what's going on over there. And your story of taking CVP and not being confident and then feeling more confident because somebody else held your confidence. That's sort of what we're doing as teachers. And it's why you have been brought in to our communities to help people and coach people and come to workshops. And this idea of, we understand that in the beginning, we're not so confident, but if somebody else can hold confidence for ourselves till we have enough of our own, that's powerful. And it doesn't take too long. You're a perfect example. But can you talk a little bit about just how you help artists? Because you're an amazing coach and an amazing helper and inspirer. Can you just speak to why, how that informs you and all the rest?
It's something that I find so rewarding. Can't tell you how rewarding I find it, because I understand what it feels like to be that person. I think that's the thing. I find it very easy to empathize with whatever somebody's experiencing because I've probably experienced it myself in some level. I know what it feels like to be creatively stuck. I know what it feels like to not know what you're doing. I know what it feels like to be making something and feel that it's not as good as what other people are doing. Although I was able to very quickly switch my brain round to go, well, that's fine because I can be inspired by what they have done. So I kind of, I get that. When I worked as a therapist, one of the things that I got from that was learning how to communicate in a particular way that would help people to realize that they were being heard, because that's so important. That's one of the most important things you can do for somebody, is to let them know that you hear them and that you understand, and to do it genuinely. And I do. So when we're coaching people, I can drop in quite quickly into their space and be with them and connect with them. And it's a muscle that was exercised so many times when I worked for years and years and years with people. And to do it in the capacity of art because you've then got this art. And you know what I find really interesting is that when people are talking about their paintings, when they're saying this painting feels too stilted, I want to be wilder, they're really talking about themselves. When they're looking at a painting and saying, I don't think this is
Wow.
good enough, they're really talking about themselves. I don't think I'm good enough. The painting becomes the thing that we put in front of us and we talk about, but we're really talking about how we feel. Do you know what I mean? So that,
Yes, it's a
yeah,
stand-in for who we are and who we are
who we
becoming.
are.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah. And so we kind of, you stand beside somebody and they have their painting and they're saying, I'm just really worried that I'm not going to have enough paintings to take home from this workshop that are good enough. And what they're really saying is, I'm just worried that I'm not good enough.
I see this with
You know,
not using enough paint, right? Like people
yes.
don't put out enough paint on their palette, and that is telling.
Yeah. Or painting everything's, remember you said once we tend to paint things at the size of our fist. Well, what's that about? It's not okay to go bigger. It's not okay to expand into the space. That says a lot about how we feel about ourselves. I need to just not take up very much space. So when we're talking about the painting, I'm always kind of aware, if it's a one-to-one thing, I'm always aware that you're actually talking about the person. So what you say really matters. And that's why I have a real issue with like I don't think we should be calling our paintings, I don't think we should insult our paintings. I don't think we should ever say this is, well, I will sometimes. I'll sometimes flick through. So I was showing somebody my sketchbook recently and I said, well, I don't know what that is. That's a bit of a mess. And she's, oh, but I don't actually, I'm saying that kind of tongue in cheek. I don't really think, I can look at it quite objectively and say that one didn't work. Okay, look at this one. This one's amazing. So I'm not just as a knee-jerk reaction criticizing everything that I produce. It's not like that. And I think there's a difference when somebody is able to say, I've made this and I love it. Then it's okay for them to say, and I made this one that's not so good. But when somebody is just not able to appreciate what they have created and see the beauty in it, regardless of, what's there, because there's always beauty in it, because it's been created, it's an expression. When they're not able to see that and talk about it in a way that's kind, then they're really not talking about themselves in a way that's how I see that it is. It's a manifestation of how they feel about themselves. And so to
Wow.
be able to just hold that person for a moment and just let them know in some small way that they actually are good enough. And maybe that's done through talking about the painting, about talking about, well, how would you feel if I said that your painting was a dog's dinner? Well, I wouldn't like you if you did. So how would you feel if somebody said that to you? So how we talk about our paintings really is an indication of how we're talking about ourselves, I think.
That's so beautiful. And there's so much empathy in being able to help people. If you can if you can feel as they feel, then you have a better shot at showing up in a way. And I love how sensitive you are and the empathy. And it's just love. It's just really, it's beautiful. I've worked with you and coached alongside you now, and I'm thinking back to Morocco. And one of the things that I notice you do is that somebody will have a challenge, but you assimilate it and then you ask them something. Sometimes it's a question that's sort of off to the side of it. And it's a powerful way to empower them. And I just touch upon that because it's a unique ability you have where they might say, I don't like this. And then you will say, you'll pose a question that, maybe shifts how they are even thinking about things.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't remember. I get so dropped into that zone. I find it really hard to even remember what I said to people. It's a very strange thing. And so I remember there was somebody in Morocco and it was kind of later on in the day and she was kind of struggling. And I was like, you know what? You've been painting since 9 o'clock this morning. Maybe you can just play now. It's not 4. You're probably tired. And she's like, oh, really? I don't have to make a perfect painting. I said, no, just relax. You've been really busy. It's okay to be tired. It's okay to get to this point in the day and for your energy to drop a little bit. That's, it's almost like just giving people permission to experience what they're experiencing. So sometimes it's just that. Sometimes I'm just kind of almost like reflecting back at them what I can see. Well, you look like you're a bit tired, and it's 4:30 in the afternoon, and maybe just relax a bit and just play with some colors. Do you know what I mean? It's just so that I
Yes.
remember saying that, and she was like, "Oh my God, that made a difference." I don't know, Nick. It's just I don't know what I say to people. There's
It,
something when it's like an intuitive thing when you're in the flow, and it feels very much like when I feel like I'm connected to somebody, and it can happen very quickly. You get into a state of flow the same way you do when you're making a painting, and you get out of your own way, and something comes through, and I don't know where it comes from. In fact, at the workshop, I was able to speak in front of 40 odd people. That's something that I never in a million years thought I'd be able to do. And I did it without really even thinking about it.
I love it. I love it. Caroline, listen, this has been so great, and I'm so excited for what's coming. I really appreciate you, and thank you for this amazing conversation. I think I'm going to go paint right now.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much. It's just, yeah, that was a lot of fun chatting to you. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Bye.
Bye.